But first of all, thanks a lot for having us.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I wanted like to go back on all that you did, and especially the last album, because I think it's really interesting. And when I go back to all your discography, I think, in my opinion, it sounds like pretty timeless in a kind of way. Yet, listening to The Mountain Will Fall, I saw that there were some strong choices in terms of production, like very contemporary. And was it the main goal for you when you started recording it?
Um, I let's see. Yes, that was one of the goals. Because of the DJ sets that I had been doing between 2013, actually 2012 to 2014, I was doing something I hadn't done in a long time, which was play normal DJ sets, not just my own show or like a purpose-built show like with Cut Chemist doing a 45 thing or something, but just like DJ sets, new things that I liked. And actually, I was challenging myself by trying to limit myself only to music that had come out within the last 3 months.
All right.
So I was listening to a ton of music on SoundCloud and everywhere, and educating. In a way, it was like a big education to what was happening. And obviously, I always like to try to keep up, but this was quite immersive. And I was building sets and changing them constantly as I was going on tour, and doing a lot of mixes for radio and things. So that all kind of educated me and informed my production style, because I was hearing things that I didn't know how to do and couldn't have done 5 years prior. And so I started reaching out to a lot of artists that I was playing. And that's what led to collaborations with people like G. Jones and Bleep Bloop and other people on my Liquid Amber label.
All right. And talking about the role that being a DJ implies, like your work have always been like to push and to play music that is maybe underrated or worth listening to. Is it something that also comes in your creative process in a kind of way? The fact that you were like soaked in that music, like.
Yeah, I mean, I learned a long time ago that my taste always leans towards more underground or headsy music, less mainstream. I feel like I will always be in the second room, not the main room, because that's where, in a way, I feel like my tastes are aligned with, you know what I mean? When things become too mainstream, to me, there's always a compromise with the music, and I don't like to compromise. I mean, I like to make music that people can relate to, but I also like to make music that's very personal.
Of course. And a lot of producers like that have a long career like you tend to repeat the same recipe. How can you explain that urge that you have for new sounds, always trying something new, getting out of your comfort zone? How can you explain that urge that you have?
I think the best way to put it is, there's so many rap lyrics that have to do with, if you cross over, you have to go back to class or go back to school. And for me, being in class and learning from my peers is sometimes uncomfortable, but it's the only way you can stretch and grow. And being able to acknowledge that you need help and you need education sometimes is not easy, because for me, I mean, I've been making music and putting out records for a long time, and if you start to get too comfortable, then you are falling behind. And so for me, it's just a constant process of acknowledging that somebody else is doing something that you can't do.
Okay.
And it's good to try to learn from those people.
And there is a quote that you always quote from an MC that I love called Guru. And there is a line: when you sell out to appeal the masses, you have to go back and enroll in some classes. So that's the line, right? So do you think that keep on doing records like the fans maybe would be asking you is like always going back to introducing, for instance, would have been setting out to appeal to the masses, in your opinion?
I just think for me it's creatively bankrupt, because I was, 23, 24 years old, whatever, when I made that record, and my understanding of music and sound and engineering and production technique was this big. And then on the Uncle record it got a little bit bigger, and then on the Private Press it got a little bit bigger, and hopefully that continues, that process. And for me to try to go backwards and shrink back down, to me it's not only is it not interesting for me, but it's dishonest, because I don't just loop beats anymore, or You know what I mean? Like the way I made introducing was the best I could do at that time, but technology has moved on. 20 years of musical ideas.
The genre moved on too, yeah.
Yeah,
Because like,
everything's moved on.
for instance, yeah, of course, like when we talk about introducing, it was a revolution at the time, but in my opinion, hip-hop is one of the genres, maybe one of the only genres nowadays that keeps on reinventing itself, and as one of the main acts of what people call like the golden age of hip-hop. How do you perceive this evolution that you keep on following?
Well, hip-hop taught me to do this. Yeah. Hip-hop taught me to keep an open mind and to be able to listen to everything and not feel as though, you know, people are going to look at you funny if you listen to a country western record or a, you know, some kind of witch house record or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And be able to just, you know, because that to me goes back to people like Grandmaster Flash and Africa Bambaataa and people who were really responsible for shaping the ideas of hip-hop culture, which was keep an open mind, keep an open ear, and listen to the music that wasn't necessarily intended for you.
Of course. And beat music, like, is everywhere nowadays, with artists like Aketranada, Hudson Mohawk, we're going to talk about him, of course, Clams Casino too. They are killing it right now. How do you feel about this new generation of beatmakers who are also pushing things forward?
Yeah, to me, they're my heroes, you know what I mean? Because people like Clams and, I mean, so many producers that, in fact, a lot of them that are on the Introspective remix album, you know, to me, these are my heroes. Catronata, like you mentioned. I mean, people, you know, the footwork scene in Chicago. To me, that language, that rhythmic language, is the formula that people will be following for years. And yeah, people who make good music, especially that have ideas that I feel like I couldn't have done, I need that. That's where I get all of my energy from.
Okay, so this linked me to what happened tonight. For instance, you played a remix by Hudson Mohawk of one of your tracks. How does it feel for you to hear your music through the ears of musicians who must have been like influenced by you too? How does that feel when you listen to that tracks?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously people like Clams and Hudson Mohawk that have a good track record of making, you know, they've made bona fide hit records that you hear on the radio. And so my expectations are always a little bit higher. And with both of those remixes, I played them and I just went, yep. You know what I mean? Like I would play this, I would, you know, to me it's interesting, it's progressive. Like the Hudmo remix, that interesting kind of glitchy not time signature, but the cadence of the rhythms was very progressive to me. It was like, yeah, that's what people will be doing in 6 months, you know.
Talking about also the people you work with, I found something pretty interesting in your record is that you worked with musicians who are not beatmakers, like in the proper sense of it, nor like rappers, for instance, Neil Schramm and Matthew Halsall. And I was wondering, what were you seeking through those featurings? What were you seeking with them?
Sure, I wanted to work with people that were making instrumental music, but weren't necessarily operating in the same, you know, sphere as myself. Mm-hmm. I also collaborated on the album with G. Jones and Bleep Bloop, but to me that was a little more expected, and I wanted to have some unexpected collabs on the record too. And I think making instrumental music is more difficult than making music with a singer or a rapper. They both are difficult in their own way, but to me, it's really the arrangement. You know, one of the things that I always felt very strongly about, and even in the 90s when people first started to write about my music and stuff, is I didn't want to be compared to other artists that were making instrumental music that to me just felt like a demo that was waiting for a rapper or waiting for a singer. Like it was just kind of like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. And the instrumental music that I was trying to make was very different, I thought. And so I feel like with Matthew and Nils, they're people that understand that. And in both cases, I just felt that if I worked with these artists, we would create something that is totally unique to my catalog and their catalog also.
All right. And talking about catalog too, like you mentioned like Bleep Bloop and G. Jones, they are both artists that you signed on your own label, Liquid Humber. what was the main goal? Defend the music you believe in with that label? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, from listening to all the artists that I was using in my DJ sets, seeing how they released music, really it's about, it's kind of like a cosign. It's like a level up that I'm trying to offer to artists. Ironically, now I don't feel like G or Aaron Bleep Bloop would benefit as much because they're already on their way up. And so for me, it's like I want the label to be kind of a service for artists. And the music is all free. It's all free for download. So there's never any money that changes hands between me and the artist. It's just like, I will, you know, spend my money on social media buys and things like that to try to spread the word on their music, because to me that feels good.
Right. To end this interview, I would like to maybe focus on some tracks about the last record too. I think like Ashes to Ascend was one of the last tracks you recorded, and I think it's one of your favorites on the record too. Can you explain us why this particular track is something that moved you?
Yeah, I think certain tracks come quite quickly, and I was working on the album and I felt that there needed to be a moment of like a very high calling of art. And by that I mean there's some songs that I put a lot of emotional energy into that aren't fan favorites, like Organ Donor or songs like that, but they're songs that mean a lot to me personally. And so with that song, I knew I wanted there to be a song on the album that was quite spread out and very unusual in its arrangement. And California, I feel like also was one of the later songs, and I had ideas of what I wanted these songs to be, and sometimes you can't achieve what you hear in your head. And on both of those songs, I felt like I was able to achieve it, and so those always end up being favorite songs for me.
Okay. And talking about also the creative process and what you were thinking with tracks, for instance, like Three Ralphs, California, you just mentioned, Ghost Town, it seems to me like you were trying to create different songs inside of the same song.
Exactly.
What was it the purpose of it? Was it what you were looking?
Yeah, because one of the things that frustrates me sometimes with beat music is that it's very formatted in the same way like I was talking about beats in the 90s where it's verse, chorus. Nowadays it's, you know, intro, build, drop, outro. And sometimes that annoys me. And I wanted to offer the scene a sense of like that the song, you don't know where it's going to end up. You know what I mean? It goes through movements. There's this is a song within a song, another song within a song. In fact, originally Three Ralphs went into another direction also after where it currently stops. Maybe that version will come out someday, but yeah, that to me is something that I feel like I learned from free jazz, you know, progressive rock music, other types of genres from the past, and then apply them to the beat scene.
Okay, last question, and then I'm gonna end it. But were you thinking about also like the wall record, because like nowadays everybody listens to playlists and stuff like that. Doing that kind of stuff is maybe a way to lose the people through the listening of it, like maybe like getting lost in the middle of the record, not following like track 1, track 2, track 3.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I like sometimes a lot of classic albums where it's not really clear. Like if you look at the bands on the record, you know, sometimes you're like a good example is something like B-Boy Bouillabaisse by the Beastie Boys on Paul's Boutique, where it's like part A, part B, part C, part D, part E. And the first kind of full EP that I made was similar. It was just called, it was DJ Shadow and the Groove Robbers, Hip Hop Reconstruction from the Ground Up, or something like that. And it had part A, part B, part C. And the idea was just let it play. It doesn't matter where a song starts, where it ends. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and what you did.
Thank you.
It was
Appreciate
amazing
it.
with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.